So I'll just do a quick introduction for you, Stuart. So Stuart's research addresses environmental governance and risk in a variety of contexts, including climate change, biodiversity conservation, agriculture and food security, the greening of consumption practices, and the social impacts of resource development. Professor Lockie played a key role in the establishment of the Tropical North Queensland Drought Resilience Adoption and Innovation Hub, and is a co-leader of the Reef Restoration and Adaptation Program, that's RRAP, stakeholder and traditional owner engagement sub-program. So please welcome Stuart, who's going to manage this part of our afternoon.
Thanks, Anthea. I don't know why I look down, but the first thing I see is the word toilet. So, okay, so I'm going to introduce this session in hopefully under 5 minutes. Now, I've heard it claimed, mostly by people like myself, that RRAP is the largest non-defence R&D program currently operating in Australia, and by far the largest R&D program looking explicitly at assisted ecosystem adaptation worldwide. Now, whether or not those things are true, I don't know, but it's certainly big, which raises some interesting questions around, the discourse we constantly hear about government not responding to climate signals, lack of adaptive management. But the fact that it's big, and the fact that it's initiating a whole lot of work, over 300 scientists engaged in the present time, means that it will inevitably raise a whole bunch of social questions. And it also means that there will be different versions of RRAP sitting around in people's heads. There will be the versions of RRAP in which very carefully engineered and planned solutions are rolled out, and communities and industry players and traditional owners are enrolled in their deployment. And there will be versions of RRAP which are closer to the one in my head, in which we're really needing to I'm almost going to say the word engage with communities, but I really loathe that word engage because it can be used and abused in so many ways. And because it implies that we somehow sit outside of those communities. We need, as a society, to have a very deep and considered and probably at times difficult conversation about what kind of planet we are going to inhabit and bequeath. So we can talk about shifts from conservation paradigms based on protection to conservation paradigms based on resilience and intervention. And we can use, and look, it's tempting to use that sort of language because it's a lot less confronting. We've all got those places where we feel that the deep emotional impact of watching our world change. For me, it's usually about 100 metres off the beach at Palm Cove, where I can paddle out and I can turn around and I can look at the wet tropics and I can be awestruck and I can also burst into tears. Then there are the days when I just start thinking about crocodiles, and once they're in your head, it's all over. And if you fall off your ski out near the rocky reef and you feel something under your foot, oh man. I know it was just a rock, but so anyway, let me get on to the actual presentation bit. That one, creating a future for the GBR. Right, okay. Look, I have the privilege of living and working on Irukandji country. I'd like to acknowledge all the traditional owners who we work with throughout the Great Barrier Reef and the Great Barrier Reef catchments. A little bit on the overall logic for the program. Look, absolutely, all of the modelling as well as the things we want to be true say that programs like RRAP are a waste of time if you don't go hard on greenhouse gas mitigation. Projects like RRAP are also a bit of a waste of time if you don't maintain and improve and optimise our existing suite of management practices. so what you might call conventional management. And then on top of that, the development of new management options. I don't like the term intervention, which we also discuss. Again, it takes us out of the ecosystem in the way that other language takes us out of the community. So that's where we sit, adding some extra options. 3 basic streams of activity within RAP: protection, adaptation, and restoration. Adaptation is the most important one. All of the research and modelling to date suggests that the most cost-effective options are the ones that facilitate reefs' adaptive responses to climate change, not ones where you try to fix the whole system or rebuild the whole system. And the ones around protection, around using fogging, sea misting, cloud brightening, high risk in the sense that we still don't know if they're likely to work, not high risk in the sense that they'll be dangerous. Now, stakeholder engagement and regulation are so important that the 2 sub-programs get lumped into one and put at the top of what's a very complex program. There are 3 main objectives for the engagement sub-program, and we summarise them with the words understanding, involving, and learning. So I won't read these word for word, but let me just dwell on a couple of points related to the question I raised earlier today. So in terms of understanding, it is very important to be aware of perceptions among community members that could make it difficult to implement new approaches to management. But let me ask you a question. It's an unfair question. It's a false choice. What's the bigger outrage? 50% loss of coral cover or 50% plus unemployment in some reef communities? Right? It's a false choice because we can address both. But when you consider the amount of money we're spending on programs like RAP, if we don't take a step beyond asking traditional owners for approval, if we don't create real job opportunities, real education opportunities, if we don't address the wage disparities between Indigenous rangers and QPWS rangers, if we don't make really genuine steps towards self-determination, autonomy, sovereignty, we've lost a huge opportunity. We're not going to fix every social problem through RAP, but we do need to address those distributional issues in our first objective carefully. The regulatory sub-program treats the regulator from the very top of Gabrumpa through to all the permitting officers as key participants in this process. It's a big team. They're not all in that photo, but the ones who weren't there, they lose marks. And I now hand over to Gillian Paxton to talk about one of our activities.